In this instructional video, we will cover the steps you take to run the statistical analyses for Lab 2 to evaluate the impact of your intervention on the self-esteem of older adults in the assisted living facility. Before you view this video, you should have already finished defining your variables and entering all the participant data into your SPSS file. If you saved your data file and try to reopen it, but you don't see any of your data, no worries. Click on the Open Folder icon and locate your data file. Make sure that under Files of Type, it says PASW Statistics. That will tell the computer to allow you to open this kind of SPSS file. Click on the file and then hit Open. In this lab, you are working with a standardized scale which captures your dependent variable. Some standardized scales require what is called reverse coding on some items. Reverse coding is a technique used on some scales to force participants to read each question carefully, as opposed to a participant indicating the same score for each item just to complete the scale more quickly. According to Dr. Rosenberg, the creator of the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, a few of the scale items must be reverse coded on both the pre-test and post-test items prior to calculating each participant's overall total scale score for a measure of self-esteem. These items are indicated on your case scenario document. In order to reverse code item number 1, 3, 4, 7, and 10, you must go to Transform, then click on Recode into Same Variable. Move pre-test and post-test items 1, 3, 4, 7, and 10 over to the right-hand box entitled Variables. Then click on Old and New Values. These are all the items that we need to tell SPSS to reverse code. For these reverse-coded items, you must tell SPSS what the previous values mean now. So, an item score of 1, old value, will now mean 4, new value. A 2 will now mean 3, a 3 will now mean 2, and a 4 will now mean 1. Therefore, enter a 1 in the old values box. Then enter a 4 in the new values box and click Add. Do this for each of the values as shown here. Click Continue. Now click OK. And SPSS will do all the reverse coding for you, as you'll now notice in the data view screen. Next, you must calculate a total scale score for each participant on both their pre-test and post-test. According to Dr. Rosenberg, creator of the RSE scale, the total scale score is calculated by totaling or adding each item on the scale. Lower scores, the lowest would be a score of 10, indicate lower self-esteem, while higher scores, the highest score would be a score of 40, indicate higher self-esteem. To do this for each pre and post test, you must create 2 additional variables. Pre-tote and post-tote. Pre-total and post-total. Follow these steps to calculate total scale scores for each participant's pre-test and post-test. Go up to Transform, then Compute Variable. Let's create the pre-test total scores first. In the target variable box, type pre-tote. Click on pre-test item number 1, then click the arrow to move it over to the numeric expressions box. Then click the plus symbol. Click on pre-test item number 2, then click the arrow to move it over to the numeric expressions box. Then click the plus symbol. Do this for all 10 pre-test items. In other words, you're telling SPSS to add up all 10 pre-test items to calculate a total scale score for each participant in the pre-test. Once you are finished, click OK. Go to your data view screen and you'll notice that SPSS has calculated each participant's self-esteem pretest score. Now work on the post-test total score. Go back to Transform, Compute Variable, and you will notice that your last commands are still there, so just delete everything in the numeric expressions box. In the target variable box, type post-tote. Click on the post-test item number 1, then click the arrow to move it over to the numeric expressions box. Then click the plus symbol. Click on post-test item number 2. Click the arrow to move it over to the numeric expressions box. Then click the plus symbol. Do this for all 10 post-test items. In other words, you're telling SPSS to add up all 10 post-test items to calculate a total scale score for each participant in the post-test. Once you are finished, click OK. In your data view screen, you will now notice 2 columns. One column for each participant's total score for the pretest, and another column for each participant's total score for the post-test. What we have done up to this point is prepared our data so that we have everything we need to answer what we are really curious about. Did your intervention make a change in the self-esteem levels among older adults in the assisted living facility? In order to answer this question, we must compare the average overall self-esteem levels between pre- and post-tests. For that, we must tell SPSS to compare the means for each test to see if there have been any statistically significant change in the self-esteem levels. Let's see if the intervention with the older adults had an impact on their self-esteem. To run a statistical analysis on pre- and post-test mean scores, go to Analyze, Compare Means, Paired Sample t-test. In the box to the left, click on Pre-tote. Then hold the Shift key and click on Post-tote. Then click the arrow to move them over to the Paired Variables box. Click OK. This is called your output. Remember, you must save this file as first name, last name, underscore lab2 underscore output. As part of your assignment, you will email to the instructor. You should see these 3 boxes. However, you only need to pay attention to 2 of them. Let's take a look at the information you need from the first box on our next slide. This box gives you information you will need for your assignment and writing up your results. Pay attention to the info in red. This box will tell you the mean scores for your pre- and post-tests, as well as the number of participants in the study. If your N size is different from 13, it means that you treated an item on one participant's pre- or post-test scale as missing 999. And that's okay. The results in red are the most important information to pay attention to, especially for your assignment and writing up your results. Please refer to the document in Lab 2 folder, Template for Writing Up Your Results, to help you know to describe the findings from your output file in written paragraph form. Writing up your results is one of the questions you must answer located on your case scenario document. Here, SPSS gives you your paired samples t-value, as well as your degrees of freedom, as well as statistical significance information. Remember, if your significance level is less than 0.05, you have reached statistical significance. That would mean that the difference in self-esteem levels of your assisted living facility residents is statistically significant. In other words, a p-value of less than 0.05 means that differences in self-esteem are big enough to be attributed to your intervention and not to error or threats to validity. On the other hand, if your significance is 0.05 or higher, that means your intervention did not have a statistically significant impact on their self-esteem levels. For this assignment, you must also run a reliability analysis. To run a reliability analysis, an analysis of internal consistency, you must go to Analyze, Scale, and Reliability Analysis. We are going to compute a Cronbach's alpha for our measure of reliability. To run a reliability analysis, an analysis of internal consistency, you must go to Analyze, Scale, Reliability Analysis. Move all of the pretest items over to the right-hand box with the arrow button. Then click OK. Your output should look like the box on the right of this slide. Under Cronbox Alpha, you see a number. In this example, your level of reliability is 0.590. Therefore, this scale has a reliability level that is unacceptable. This means that the internal consistency, how well the items are related to each other, is really low. Therefore, this hypothetical example does not appear to be a very reliable scale. Remember to email yourself your data file and your output file so that you always have a backup copy. Remember that even if you email it to yourself, the only computer you can open an SPSS output file on is a computer with SPSS software. Use the information from your output file to answer the questions on the case scenario for Lab 2. You will submit your data file, output file, and answers to the lab questions on a Microsoft Word document for your grade for this lab. This concludes the instructions on analyzing data for Lab 2.